Hey guys, Jake Dana here, and today I'm presenting you with my DraftKings and FanDuel NFL picks for Week 6. Now, if you want some credibility for my picks and what I'm saying, then please take a look back at my former videos. We've placed in every single contest this season on DraftKings, which is my main site. Last week we still managed to place, even with the injury to Carlos Hyde. That limited our upside, but we were still able to place, so I don't have to talk about that anymore. I'm sure most of you guys are here just for the picks. So with that being said, let's move right into the quarterback. At quarterback this week, one of my favorite players is Drew Brees of the New Orleans Saints going up against the Detroit Lions. He has a DraftKings price of $7,200 and a FanDuel price of $8,600. Now there are a few good options at quarterback this week, but I will be riding with Drew Brees in a lot of them. A lot of people will be on Deshaun Watson this week, and he's somebody that I definitely am not against, but for my cash game, I'm a cash game type of player, so I really think that I'd rather pivot off of Deshaun Watson and go with Brees. This week he's going up against the Lions' 27th ranked pass defense, really an overrated pass defense in general. And this defense that I was talking about surrendered 355 yards and 3 touchdowns to Cam Newton. Also, he is a key piece to my quarterback wide receiver stack this week with New Orleans Saints receiver Michael Thomas. And then finally, the last thing I want to touch on is Vegas sees this game having a 50-point total or more with the edge going to the Saints. So basically saying Vegas believes that the Saints will put up at least, and I mean at least 25 points on the board. And I think a lot of those points have to come from Drew Brees because if you watch the Saints, they really don't have that much of a ground game. They're going to be relying on Drew Brees against a pretty porous Lions secondary. Moving on to running back 1, we have Kareem Hunt of the Kansas City Chiefs going up against the Pittsburgh Steelers. He has a DraftKings price of $8,200 and a FanDuel price of $9,300. And I did this last week against the Pittsburgh Steelers. They are my favorite team, but I made a great call on using Leonard Fournette last week, and he paid off big time, helping us place in all of our lineups. And I'm going to be doing the same thing again this week with Kareem Hunt, who I think is really underpriced, going up against the Steelers' 28th ranked rush defense. So far in 2017, Hunt has averaged 28.1 fantasy points per game, which is far too high for his $8,200 price tag on DraftKings. And really, his price tag on FanDuel was too low in my opinion as well. Also, something I didn't bullet point here, but the Chiefs' receiving corps is kind of banged up. There's a chance that Travis Kelce might not play, and also the Steelers have a really good secondary. So if the Chiefs rely on the run, then this will be, as far as DFS goes, hopefully a really big game for him. I don't really want that against my Steelers, but I really don't see it happening that Hunt doesn't have a big week. Also, the Steelers have been having some offensive troubles, meaning that they're not going to be on the field too much just because they haven't been converting first downs, meaning the ball is going to get in Kareem Hunt's hands more the more that the Steelers offense struggles like it has been the past few weeks. At running back 2, we're going a little bit cheaper with Jerick McKinnon of the Minnesota Vikings going up against the Green Bay Packers. He has a DraftKings price of $4,100 and a FanDuel price of $5,600. Now, if you play normal fantasy football, you might have added Latavius Murray on the waiver wire, similar to what I did in a league with my friends. However, last week, Jerick McKinnon outsnapped Latavius Murray 47-22, so it looks like McKinnon is that guy now in Minnesota and not Murray. So I think he is underpriced, especially with his involvement in the pass game. Originally, with Dalvin Cook in the game, McKinnon served as a third down pass catching back, and now he has that still, but with the addition of some carries. So this makes him a really easy plug and play to help roster guys like the aforementioned Kareem Hunt and then Drew Brees. Finally, I'm going to go back up the list. Jerick McKinnon is playing on the Vikings going up against the Packers, and I know it's a division game, so usually division games tend to stay a little bit closer, but Green Bay, I think, is the better team, and even if this is a close game, that should increase the involvement of McKinnon in the pass game, also in the run game. And secondly, say Green Bay is pulling away with the lead, well, that might be even better for McKinnon, as, like I said before, he is a pass-catching type of back, so we're going to get those solid PPR points, especially on DraftKings with that full PPR. At wide receiver 1, we have Michael Thomas of the New Orleans Saints going up against the Detroit Lions. He's a DraftKings price of $7,300 and a FanDuel price of $8,500. Now, if you're watching before, I really don't have to say anything else about the Lions secondary, so I wanted to make sure I talked about Michael Thomas. He is averaging just under 10 targets per game, around maybe a little bit less than 9.5. I looked it up earlier. And I think this week against the 27th ranked pass defense of the Lions, he should be in line for even more targets, more than 10. And I know Darius Slay is on the other side, but you have a huge height difference there. So I think that Michael Thomas is in line for some really nice red zone targets this week, giving him an even higher upside and higher floor with the prospects of a touchdown. Also, the Vegas total, which I said before, is riding around 50 points with the advantage to the Saints. And then finally, I just like him a lot this week because of his stackability with Drew Brees. Him and Brees will be a key stack and a key, really just a core to a lot of my lineups this week. At wide receiver 2, we have Michael Crabtree. This is a guy that I think is wildly underpriced with a DraftKings price of $5,800 and a FanDuel price of $7,000. Part of the reason for this underpricing here is due to the fact that most analysts did not think Derek Carr would come back this week. So you have Michael Crabtree pricing without Derek Carr. But now that Derek Carr is playing, he's pretty much riding at his season low salary. I don't see him getting any lower than this. I think Crabtree is in line for a big game against a LA Chargers secondary that has had some injuries. And then the shadow corner on that team is very likely to follow Amari Cooper. Cooper has been very unproductive recently, while Crabtree hasn't been as productive without Carr, but he's kept up his valuableness to the team. So with Carr back in the lineup and the possibility of the Chargers shadow corner covering Cooper, I think Crabtree should be able to run free and hopefully get another one of those monster 2-3 touchdown games. It's definitely not out of the question here. At wide receiver 3, we're going to go back to the Minnesota and Green Bay game with Adam Thielen of the Minnesota Vikings. He's a DraftKings price of $6,000 and a FanDuel price of $6,500. Even with Stefon Diggs on the team, Thielen leads the Vikings in targets, being the first reason why I like him this week. Second of all, as we all know, the Packers secondary is horrible. They really don't have a number one guy there that's going to shut down your receivers, so I think Diggs is a great play as well this week, but with the fact that Thielen is leading the team in targets and he has a lower price tag, I'm going to be riding with him this week as he is cheaper. Also, I like Adam Thielen this week because of the fact of something that I touched on before. This game should be pretty close, and if it is not, I don't see the Vikings pulling away with this. I see the Green Bay Packers, if anybody, to pull away with the game. So in each of these two scenarios, you're still going to have the involvement of Adam Thielen no matter what, and this creates a really nice floor for him. At tight ends, there's not a ton of really fancy, nice-looking options this week, so I'm going with Austin Seferian-Jenkins of the New York Jets going up against the New England Patriots. He has a DraftKings price of $4,300 and a FanDuel price of $5,600. So far, the Patriots' defense and secondary is one of the absolute worst in 2017. I don't think a lot of people saw this coming, but they have been getting torched by opposing offenses, and thankfully to Brady, they can still stay in the games. But I want to talk about Seferian-Jenkins here. Over the past few weeks, he's averaged around 6 targets, and these amount of targets per game are going up. He had a touchdown last week. He's developing chemistry with Jets quarterback McCown, and this is exactly what you look for with a guy that has a pricing like this. So he really has a low risk, high reward, a nice guy to fit in with the more expensive players. I'll be riding with him a lot this week, as Zach Ertz was actually my favorite target on Thursday night. So my favorite target for Sunday has to be Seferian-Jenkins. At defense and special teams, we are going with the Atlanta Falcons going up against the Miami Dolphins. They have a DraftKings price of $3,500 and a FanDuel price of $5,000. So far in 2017, Miami's offense ranks dead last in yards per game and points per game. I know that they did miss a game earlier this year, but regardless of that, these stats are still undeniable. The Miami offense has not been able to get it going with Jay Cutler. Jay Ajayi's done nothing this year, not even anything close to last year. So with that being said, a struggling offense going up against a pretty solid Atlanta Falcons defense, I mean, I'll really take that any day. Also, I think they're a nice pivot off of Jacksonville. I think a lot of people might be on the Jacksonville defense this week after they've had a few really, really solid showings in a row. I'm not going to say that the Jacksonville defense isn't a good play this week, but I want to make a little pivot off of that and go with the Atlanta Falcons against a struggling Jay Cutler's offense of the Miami Dolphins. And then finally, just a little thing. This isn't really the biggest thing to consider, but it is a defense as a whole, so they have that home field advantage, and that's always nice. In conclusion, I want to include some additional picks again, something I do every week. At quarterback, I have Deshaun Watson of the Houston Texans going up against the Cleveland Browns. I think that this guy will be chalk this week, so there will be maybe one or two lineups where I use Deshaun Watson just because what if he has that monster game, you know? And if I faded him, then I'm already behind 30-40% of the field. At running back, I like Leonard Fournette this week of the Jacksonville Jaguars going up against the LA Rams. Even with a really solid line in front seven of the Rams, they haven't been able to stop the run this season. So I like Fournette this week as a really nice workhorse. He's been the workhorse for this team throughout the whole season. It's not going to change Sunday against the Rams, and I think he's a really nice play this week. At wide receiver, you probably saw this coming. It's DeAndre Hopkins of the Houston Texans, going up against the Cleveland Browns. He's a really solid play, especially in a stack with Deshaun Watson. And like I said, I will be using these two maybe in one or two lineups just because they will be very highly owned. However, I like to kind of pivot off of them this week with Drew Brees and Michael Thomas. At tight end, I have Zach Miller of the Chicago Bears going up against the Green Bay Packers. He's really cheap this week. I like him a lot, especially with rookie quarterback Mitch Trubisky now starting for the Chicago Bears. As a rookie quarterback, a lot of the times you'll see these rookies will have a lot of times they'll just check it down to the running back or throw it to the tight end, those more reliable and easier passes to get. So with Trubisky in the game, I think Zach Miller becomes more valuable than what his price tag reflects. And then at defense, I have the Denver Broncos going up against the New York Giants. I know they play on Sunday night, but I already mentioned the Falcons before and even the Jaguars, but this is a dream matchup for a fantasy defense. They're going up against the Giants team that's lost not 1, 2, 3, but 4 receivers last week. They really have no one to challenge the secondary of the Denver Broncos, and also the Denver Broncos have solidified their ground game. And to go along with this, I know I'm saying a lot of things here, but the Giants can't get the ground game going, so I don't think the Giants will be on the field hardly at all, and when they are, I think that sacks are in play and turnovers are not out of the question. I'm expecting a very big game from the Broncos, and there's even a possibility of a shutout here. And that's it for my picks for Week 6. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any comments or questions or want to kind of pick my brain a little bit with my picks here, tell me what you think I did wrong, what you think I did right, then please leave that in the comment section below. I'd love to talk with you guys. And again, I thank you guys for watching. I'll see you guys soon.